Ms Legalista here. Thank you for joining the video. Let me get a little bit of background here. Now, for those of you who are following me and know that I have been having some streaming issues, obviously I'm not having that issue anymore. For those of you who are new to my channel, here is what has been going on. I had Verizon 5G and it was not working. We originally did not have that. We had cable. But the 5G just tanked. So I literally had to stop posting anything. It became so cumbersome to try to record a video without glitching and lag and video audio sync issues all the time. So now I'm back. I'm going to be dropping info all the time because it's a lot easier to do it. I'm also going to be doing more short live streams, and I'm moving toward doing some longer live streams later on. We'll get there. We'll get there. But here's where I am now. So you're going to see more of me, like it or hate it or not. This particular video, we're going to the FBI. I know some of you are like, girl, no, please stop. Out of Newark, and I haven't even brought it up. I guess I should have planned a little bit better. Have brought up my share the screen. I use StreamYard for my video recording and live streaming. It allows me to easily add in pictures, add in video, just do all sorts of things. And I'm not talking about them because there's some sort of sponsorship here. That is not what's going on. It's just sort of sharing a little bit of background info. The requirement that you have to have stable internet in order to be able to do some of this. I recognize that not everybody across the country has that. We have some of our more rural areas that face challenges with that. I'm in an urban area. You would think that I would not be having live streaming issues, but if you take into account the density and the number of people who might be putting pressure on an infrastructure, a system that is not set up to handle this increase in need, then yeah, you can see why it would be an issue. That was not necessarily the case with me. I was actually on the border. So when we signed up to get Verizon 5G, they look at where you are and they say, hey, yes, you're in our service area. You're in our network. We got you covered. Only to find out you're barely in their network. You're barely going to get covered, and you're going to be having issues every single time you get on the internet. And if you've got 3 people living in your house, which is what happens here, you've got cell phones, internet TVs, laptops. Y'all, it was a lot. And so we were all walking around the house some days going, are you having issues? I can't get on. I can't even get the TV. Yeah, it was like that. But now we want to talk about stealing land. And this is something that is going on across the country. Institutions, organizations, the government, real estate agents, title companies, everybody's trying to figure out how to get a handle on this. There is no one answer to this. I say that for a lot of problems. We talk about things like diversity. Diversity is our strength, meaning if we've got a problem, there's usually a lot of things that we need to do to attack it, not just one thing. So it's not just about having good laws in place, okay? Because that's after the fact, right? It's not necessarily about just having good notification systems in place at your registered deeds office because the fraudulent deed has already been recorded, but at least you get that notification. That's after the fact. How do you get around AI? How do you handle a lot of this that's happening virtually now? We're going to have to clamp down on notarization, identification. So there are a lot of different things that we need to do. Like we need to have a toolbox that's full of a whole bunch of tools that we can use to attack this increasing problem. People just waking up. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. There was a dentist in Raleigh. A lady just went and signed his house over to her trust or something like that. Just did it. And then all of a sudden now it's like his property is in somebody else's name. It shouldn't be that easy. It should not be that easy. But this is what's going on. Fraudsters are stealing land out from under owners. And I share this with some of my family members all the time. I tell my mom and my dad, if there is something weird going on, give me a call. Let's talk about it. I try to let them know all the time. I was sitting down with my dad, I guess maybe a week or two ago, 2 weeks ago, I think. And I was telling him, I was like, okay, so here are the things I need you to be thinking about, the scams that are going on, just sort of giving him an update because fraudsters are frequently seeking out people who are elderly, retired, and own their own property because then they don't have to worry about a mortgage company. They can just go right in, get that deed filed. And if you're not staying on top of that, your property is gone before you ever even know. You don't even know until later. All right, fraudsters. Let's go to the article and see how the FBI is breaking this down. It says it begins when a real estate agent gets a solicitation from a fake property owner wanting to sell their vacant lot in a rural community. Now, this is just one example. Okay, this is just one example. Remember, I just told you about the dentist. That dentist was selling his property. He had his property on the market. A for sale sign goes up on the land. The seller asks for an all cash sale and a quick closing. Of course they do. They're the fake seller, if they can get sailor. They're the fake seller. They want a cash deal so they can take the money and run before you figure out that they don't own the property. And so if you are the buyer's agent now, you have to do more due diligence. If you've been keeping up with the changes in the real estate industry, you know that there's been a switcheroo. Buyers now need to have their own agent representing them. They need to be paying their own agent. And so these agents now have to be aware of these real estate scams that are going on. If they take their buyer to a property and they submit an offer, hey, you better know who that agent is on the other side. Have a conversation with them. Hopefully you're involved in your local realtors organization and you attend meetings and you see people and you know people, but you need to know who these people are that you're dealing with. You need to ask questions. It says the seller asks in this fraudulent scenario, the seller asks for an all cash sale and a quick closing. Within weeks, the deal can be done because it's all cash. You're literally just putting together some minor paperwork. Meanwhile, the real property owner has no idea their land has just been sold from under them. It's vacant land fraud, and it's happening at an alarming pace in New Jersey and around the country. This is not just New Jersey. Like I said, this is coming out of Newark, but this is happening everywhere. So it says, look at the parties here: property owners, realtors, title companies, attorneys, insurance companies. It takes all of these parties to stop these schemes from going on. As an attorney, let me tell you, I did a video a while back where an attorney was scammed in a real estate transaction. If funds are being wired to the attorney to pay off a mortgage, and the attorney gets a check and deposits it or sends money to someone else, wires funds out to another party, or shares their account information with someone, well, now that person can go in and do all sorts of things, which is what happened in that case. The attorney shared wiring instructions because, hey, here's where you need to send the money to my trust account. So let me give you the routing and account number. And the whole deal was fake. The buyer was fake. The buyer is not sending you any money. The buyer wants your account information so they can now do all kinds of fraudulent transactions with it, which is exactly what happened on that attorney's account. It says here, boils down to property owner impersonation. These bad actors are able to use electronic communications to convince everyone at every level of a property sale that they're the rightful owner of the property and therefore the rightful recipient of the sale proceeds. But they don't own the property. They don't own the property. And this is what is going on. He explained there are several ways the rightful owners actually discover that their property is listed for sale or has already been sold. We have one victim who just drove by their land and saw the sign. So that's the other thing. Vacant land is being targeted because there's nobody living there every day. People can't drive by and then, you see people living there and there's no for sale sign or something looks weird. That's not going to happen with vacant property because there's no house there. There's nobody coming by every day living there. And so it's easier to get away with that. In other instances, victims saw heavy equipment prepping the lot for construction. Another landowner tried to pay his property taxes, and the clerk informed him it had already been paid. Yet another victim had police show up at their house for a welfare check at the behest of a realtor suspicious of a listing solicitation he received and discovered the fraud. The ways that these frauds are taking place, it's every kind of way you can think of. They're leaving nothing out. They're going after every party in the transaction to see how they can squirm their way in and get some money back out. Okay. It says it's truly disturbing to know these victims are just losing their land. In the incident with the dentist in Raleigh, he went out and talked to attorneys. He said attorneys told him that they would charge him $8,000 to go to court to get his property back. Right? Who's got $8,000 that they just need to turn over to an attorney next week to do something that they should not have to do? One of the things that is being looked at around the country is how do we put a process in place so that people can get their property back easily without having to go out and pay an attorney thousands of dollars to show up at court, to file what needs to be filed with the court, to make an appearance, and to say, hey, here's the evidence. This person does not own the land and this person does. And so they're looking for ways to change that system. Here's how it works. Let's see what the FBI says here. Here's how it works. Cardosi and Sullivan say the fraud scheme usually begins when criminals send out solicitations to dozens of realtors. The real estate industry has a lot of due diligence to do here, who are listed on the internet or attempt to list the property themselves as for sale by owner, which is probably going to be easier for them to do now. There's, more opportunity to do that. It used to be you really did have to go through a real estate agent. If even around 25% of the realtors respond and only 5% of those result in an actual sale, the fraudsters can net anywhere from $10,000 to over $1 million. The losses add up quickly. And here's the thing to think about. The property gets sold to an unsuspecting buyer. This person is thinking they now own the land. The person who had the land is out. Okay. The person who now has land can turn around and sell it to somebody else because maybe they've got it in their name now. But think about this other party who comes in and buys property, not realizing that there's a fraudulent deed there. And maybe it's a vacant land and they're now building a house. That happened in an instance too. We've had one example of a solicitation going out to look at this. We've had one example of a solicitation going out more than 60 times in an hour. When the realtor responds, the criminal has a fake ID, fake documents with the address of the real owner. They even have fake notary stamps and seals to fraudulently execute settlement documents. What did I say? Everybody. They are using everybody in this transaction. I've hesitated to even do real estate work at all unless they are coming through a legitimate party, like somebody who has already vetted them. And then I can see, okay, so they're coming through you. Here is their employer. Here is their information. I can go look up the previous deed transactions, find out information. Are the addresses the same? Are the parties the same? You actually have to do work now just to notarize something. And it's not something that you get paid a whole lot of money to do, but all of the additional work because of the fraud that's going on. Sullivan added, what's different about this type of fraud, comparing it to others like romance scams, the criminals know the process for selling a home or land here in the United States. And it's fairly easy. I mean, anybody can go down to the Register of Deeds in most counties across the country and just say, here's the deed. And it gets stamped and filed, and there you go. No checking on the Register of Deeds part. The checking was supposed to have already been done with the parties who signed the documents. But if all that's fake, yes. They stress that it's not as odd as it may seem for this type of fraud to take place. Sellers don't have to do much in the way of paperwork. The land itself is vacant, so there's no way to go ring someone's doorbell and ask questions. It's an if it's an all cash deal, so there aren't as many eyeballs on the transaction as there are when mortgage companies and associated underwriting is involved. And let me tell you, I see the requests come in for people wanting legal assistance for deed transfers. And I shake my head and I go, you don't even know who the other party is. It's like you would have to do a whole lot of research. It is very different from when I was doing real estate. Oh my gosh, 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. Also, COVID-19 changed the way business was and continues to be conducted. More virtual, right? Not necessarily in person as much. Everyone has grown accustomed to doing transactions and deals through email and over the phone. The remote nature of a sale is still commonplace, which benefits the scammers. One of the things that has taken place a lot is the changing of wiring instructions midway or near the end of the deal. Either the realtor gets some information, the buyer or seller gets some information, or the real estate attorney gets some information saying, hey, here are the new wiring instructions. They're going with a different mortgage company, whatever. And that kind of scam happens so much. I remember if I went to the state bar's website to check on my CLE or to pay my dues, for a long time, one of the top things up there was the sort of notice about real estate fraud relating to attorneys and wiring instructions, trust account management, all of that. For a long time, every time I went to that site, it was at the top, right there. You open it up, there it is. And I remember thinking to myself, are people still falling for this? And yes, they were still falling for it because it was still a thing. Now, I do remember recently where I was working with a client and it wasn't even a real estate transaction. It was sort of a buy-sell business arrangement. And because I didn't get back to the parties regarding what my routing and account number was when they sent me the email or when they called me, I can't even remember which it was now. And I tried to call, I think it was, to talk to them about it. They said, oh, no, we're going to send you a check by mail. And so they were just like, no, we're not going to talk about wiring instructions. They were just like, no, we're at this point, we're just going to send you a check by mail. We know what your office address is. It's on the state of our website. We can verify it through, what's on your website and other information. We know that to be true. That's what we're going to. We're going to send the check to that address. We know that to be true. All right, let's scroll down a little bit here. So everybody's being a lot more cautious now. There are several things that should stand out as red flags to anyone taking on a client interested in selling a vacant parcel of land. The fake seller will ask for a quick sale, even accepting offers way below market price. They will also have a pretext to speed up the sale. The fake seller will always have an excuse for not being able to appear in person or on video, like they're traveling abroad, don't have a smartphone, or they're in the hospital. They want to do everything online to include electronic signatures. These are all red flags. There's some of the same red flags that you see with online romance scams. Oh, I can't talk to you because I work in construction overseas. I'm in the military overseas. I'm doing contract work overseas. Therefore, my internet is really bad. I'm not going to be back in the country for months. All of this should be a signal that something is not right. Even then, if you cannot get them on the phone when you need to, if you cannot get video, even if you can't get them in person, these should be red flags. These should all be red flags. How it gets discovered. Let's talk about that. The FBI says this is what happens. These bad actors are pretty good at faking their identities if there's just a preliminary look by anyone attempting to verify who they are. They have copies of the deeds. They can answer most questions about the property that they found by doing a simple online search. We've seen fake IDs from the US as well as other countries. Similarly, sales proceeds might be wired to a domestic bank account or directly overseas. Let me stop here and tell you what I did for a deed transaction recently. Like I said, I really don't do this. This came through a verified party. When I got the deed back, I saw the notary stamp. I researched the person, found out where that person worked, called up the office. She was not there that day, sent an email. I actually talked to somebody else in that office. And yes, the person did work there. And I said, can you give me her email address so that I can email her to ask her if this is a transaction that she handled on this date with these parties? And the person said yes. So, you have to go beyond just looking at the stamp and then going to that state's website to see, oh, yes, that person does actually have a stamp and the dates match. That would be the preliminary research that you do. The follow-up extra research to protect yourself and the parties would be, well, let me contact that person and, reach out to that person and do a little bit more work, do a little bit more due diligence. The standard for the work that you have to do is higher now. And the expectation from your clients is that you would do that work. You're being paid by them. You should do that work. Now, for them to still have a fraudulent thing going on there, that could have been a whole fraudulent office that I contacted, right? With a whole fraudulent set of email addresses. Fraudsters will go to a higher level of work now in order to defraud people. But we have to at least try. And so I went beyond just looking up and verifying that notary had a notary license or certification with the state, and where the person was located. And I mean, just some Googling and doing your homework is a thing now. It's a thing now. So that's what I did. It says here, they have received calls from realtors who get the suspicious solicitations and title companies looking to verify identities of the fake sellers. They also get calls post-closing. One good thing, and we're talking about how these frauds get discovered, okay? One good thing, if caught in time, the FBI and banks can terminate the transaction if they discover it's a fraud. So even if you have already sort of done things and you're wrapping up the transaction post-closing, you're the attorney. You still got to file the deed. You still got to send the commission to the parties. You still got to pay off a lien or something like that. There's still an opportunity if you find something wrong to report it. All right, back to how it gets discovered. Unfortunately, the title companies often bear the brunt of the financial loss in this fraud. On the other hand, the real property owners face a legal quagmire as they attempt to unwind the fraudulent sale of their land, which in some instances occurred years prior and with significant investment by the unwitting buyer in the meantime. Title companies have started picking up on the scams, but when they push back, the bad actors change tactics. They have started employing money mules. I've talked about that in videos before. If wire transfers are rejected, because the property owner's name doesn't match the bank accounts, scammers use domestically based accomplices to set up limited liability companies. We are doing a lot of outreach with the industry here in New Jersey. They're very interested in learning more so that they don't fall victim to these scammers. As more realtors, title companies, and other groups along with the chain are becoming aware of the fraud and taking steps to stop it, criminals are shifting their attention. We're now seeing this evolve to abandoned properties and real rental homes. Again, vacant land, abandoned properties, rental homes where the property owner is someplace else. I'm telling you, anybody can fall for this. I can fall for it. You can fall for it. Anybody can fall for some of this because of the links that the fraudsters go through to make everything look legitimate. All right, here are some tips. Set up a title alert in your county office. Again, it's going to alert you after the fact, but at least you will be able to have that information sooner rather than later. Set up online search alerts for your property. Drive by the property or have management companies do spot checks. Befriend the members of your community or neighbors to warn you if they see something suspicious. Pay taxes through escrow. Ask the local police department if they offer checks. That's usually not gonna happen, right? Tips for the industry: avoid remote closings. Get those people in front of you. Get eyeballs on that. Ask for in-person identity checks. Notarization. Have somebody else confirm identity. If this is not possible, ask for other video proof of life. Ask for a copy of the most recent tax bill or other piece of mail in addition to an ID. Now they got to go back and make some fake documents, right? Look up the phone number by reverse search or through the phone carrier. Check the email addresses and names. You can look at those email addresses. How fake and phony do they look? Fraudsters have been known to recycle them. Pay attention to the age of the seller, accents, excuses, all those excuses of why they can't see you in person, why they can't do a video. Send a certified letter to the address of record on the tax bill. Call verifying notary public to confirm they attested to the documents. Look, I'm going to tell you, I wrote that. I emailed her, kept a record. So if something pops back up, I can say, here's what happened and here's what I did to try to make sure that this was a legitimate transaction. Spread the word in your professional network to help your colleagues avoid falling for the same scam. There you go. And of course, you also want to report it. So this is a lot. There's a lot going on in this industry and a lot to keep up with. And all of these different parties are essentially opportunities for a scammer or fraudster to come in and take away part of the deal. Like I said, you've got the title companies, you've got the real estate agents, you've even got insurance companies, right? You've got the real estate attorneys, you've got the notaries. Look at all of these parties who are involved. And at each step of the transaction with each of these different parties that you're dealing with, you don't know if they're real or not. I left out mortgage brokers. You don't know who may be the gap in that chain and may be the party to cause that whole deal to fall apart because there's fraud involved. It's a lot. It is a lot to keep up with. Like I said before, the due diligence and the requirements on these professionals is going to be a lot higher. Now, the standard is a lot higher. The work that you have to do for your client is a lot higher. And property owners, that means the same thing for you. If you want to keep your property, make sure it's not stolen out from under you, you need to be doing checks. You need to sign up for notifications. If you have vacant property, like I said, put eyeballs on it. Have somebody put eyeballs on it for you. All right. So hope this provides you with some information here. Long video, long live. I told you I'm going to be recording more live so that I can get this information out here in front of you faster. I don't have to do as much editing. I don't do a lot of editing anyway. Take it or leave it. But there you go. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Comment below your thoughts. Peace.